Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 390 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game.
Question for the audience: why does your team keep clashing when you are all working towards the same goal? And that's exactly what Curt will be helping you unpack. How understanding problem-solving styles can reduce conflict, improve collaboration, and build high-performing creative teams. Guest today is Curt Friedel, Director of the Center for Cooperative Problem Solving. Curt has been running this center at Virginia Tech, where he also serves as an associate professor in the Department of Agriculture, Leadership, and Community Education. With a focus on leadership development and organizational change, Curt's work explores how problem solving and critical thinking influence team dynamics and decision making. Through his teaching and research, he helps leaders and teams build the mindset and skills needed to tackle complex challenges together. Curt, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Do you have a favorite quote or saying or a tagline that you want to share with us?
Favorite quote? Well, thanks for having me. One thing I often say is another day, another dollar. It's something my grandpa said, and I hear myself repeating it sometimes. Another day, another dollar.
So true. Have a business tagline that you want to share?
Developing leaders and teams is a tagline for the Center for Cooperative Problem Solving at Virginia Tech.
So the approach that you're taking is how people solve problems. And there's a style to it. What type of styles are out there, and why does a business owner care? If it worked well when they were in grade 6, what's the difference now?
A great question. So let me answer that question first by saying that there's lots of learning style and cognitive style inventories out there. We are specifically working with Kirton's Adaption-Innovation Inventory, or what we call the KAI, which connects with adaptation-innovation theory, which is a problem-solving theory. This was originated by a British psychologist in the 1960s and 70s, which was the start of some formal research, and he built this theory in the KAI over the course of nearly 15 years. And what he learned was we each have this innate, stable dimension of our personality in how we prefer to solve problems. And that style is not related to one's intelligence, or skills, or one's age, status, generation, culture, or nationality, or ethnicity. It's a dimension of our personality, and it doesn't change as we get older, which is really fascinating when we start thinking about why we disagree on solving problems. Sometimes you can have two really smart individuals who are very motivated to solve a problem together, very intelligent, very loyal, and still disagree on how best to solve the problem. It's often because they disagree on how best to approach the problem and solving it, and how they prefer to solve problems.
Chris, this is a strange question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We'll have one per session. Up here, the pandemic changed the corporate model dramatically. And we had a lot of contractors and gig workers, and people that were plugged in for specific purposes. When we don't have Mother Corp of 100 people, does the way we manage personalities and know about behaviors, does it change any with contractors versus employees?
Not with respect to what we're talking about here as a style. Maybe it would be best if I talk about the different styles here and then build in that to the continuum. So what Dr. Turner found is we are each positioned on the continuum of more adaptive or more innovative. I'll start with the more adaptive. More adaptive individuals tend to be those who have fewer ideas naturally. They are more careful or cautious with those ideas. They think about logistics and practicality in the thinking of those ideas. They prefer to look at systems and tweak them if they're not working. And they have more regard for group consensus and group conformity. We contrast that with more innovative, which is people who have lots of ideas. They seem to go in with a philosophy of, I have to have a bunch of bad ideas before I come up with a good one. And if a system is broke, they might prefer swapping out the system instead of tweaking on it, because they see it as antiquated. They're challenging the assumptions of the problem at hand, and they have less regard for group conformity in that problem-solving process. The KAI measures this preferred style on a continuum between 32 and 160. People, it's a normal distribution curve. The mean or average is at 95. People who score between 95 and 32 are more adaptive. The closer to 32, the more adaptive you are. So it's a strength aspect. People who score between 96 to 160 are more innovative. And the closer to 160 you are, the stronger your innovativeness. And what gets really interesting is the standard deviation is 18 points. We find in research that at 20 points, we seem to have conflict because we are approaching the problem differently. You want to tweak on the system, and I want to swap it out, or vice versa. And it affects communication and trust as well. That's a continuum, and that's what we're talking about. When we go through a crisis like COVID, we see leaders managing differently, but that aspect of the style is the same. For example, we started seeing more adaptive leaders during COVID saying the playbook we use needs to be tweaked to manage this new crisis. If we adjust how we go through normal operations and procedures, we just need to tweak this so we can keep going as usual. The more innovative managers and leaders were saying, this is new, this is a crisis. The old policy is antiquated. We need to start from the beginning and have a new guidebook, new policies, new procedures, do something different.
I find it fascinating what you've just described. There's several things come to mind. If you're saying that you have a bunch of smart people together, collectively, it's almost like they're little baby birds. Who's going to get fed first? Or two egos playing in there. So it's like what's going to go? Because there's probably only one idea that can launch out of that group. So that almost speaks to having a diverse group. In other words, the innovator versus someone who's like, I'm here to support. Is there kind of an ideal pool, an ideal mix where you have different personas coming together? I've seen that in corporations where the CEO, this one is a change maker, this one is a run status quo. Neither are the same because one keeps the ship running steady and the other one makes your ship dance.
So if you have a long-standing team that are working together and solving a bunch of problems that are complex over a period of time, it makes a lot of sense to have a diverse team. We could talk about managing that diversity here in a bit. One thing to consider is the solution to the problem should indicate the diversity you need. If you're approaching a highly structured problem where an adaptive solution gives you more advantages, maybe we should have a more adaptive team. On the other hand, if you have a less structured problem and an innovative solution gives you more advantages, maybe you need more innovators on the team.
So that's something a board then would have to assess ahead of time. If you're in the forest, it's hard to tell what the forest is versus the trees, right? You're in the thick of it, as opposed to someone that sits back and has a lay of land, an omniscient view. So is that something the board of directors would have to assess? And is there some sort of rating scale? This is complicated for this setting, for this group of people versus, if you look at the military, for example, Marine Corps, it can be roly-poly, it can be bouncing around all over the place. They'll adapt and overcome versus if you're the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, all have their own skill set. The one is like, I fly. The other one, I swim. And the other one is like a multifaceted Swiss Army tool.
Yeah. It's really hard to conceptualize complex problems and to say, this one leans more adaptive or more innovative. So that's why you need the diversity of people working together, more adaptive and more innovative, each lending insight as needed. And I think the value of KAI when it comes to using it in your teams is you can begin having a conversation about the merit of the idea instead of who came up with the idea. Let's talk about adaptive solutions. Let's talk about innovative solutions. Which one gives us some more advantages? Which ones has the fewest disadvantages? And have a safe space for that conversation, recognizing the value of those ideas and move forward with agreement versus someone says we need to do this.
With personality tests and intuition, can you guess when there's going to be a conflict even before it's been diagnosed?
That is a great question. Can we predict when we're going to have a conflict? In consulting, what the KI can do is it can predict where we might have conflict. If we have a standard deviation of 18, 20 points, we see conflict, we can start seeing where conflict might arise given where people are on the continuum. I'm using the word more adaptive and more innovative because it is a continuum. One can say, well, I'm more innovative because I'm between 96 and 160, but if someone is a 140 and hypothetically I'm a 120, I'm more adaptive than that individual. And same thing on the other side. So let's say hypothetically I'm an 80 and I'm in the room with someone who's a 63. As an 80, I'm more innovative than my friend in the room. One is always more adaptive or more innovative than the other, assuming we don't have the same KAI score.
If I'm dealing with someone that likes a lot of heavy details, typically it's an accountant or someone that does radiological exams. They're very detail oriented. There are other people, they want high view or high level information. Don't give me in the weeds. Or if I'm within a certain age range, I might have a marketing message that comes out to that person. With that whole process, how are you going to communicate the content? How are you going to prepare it?
There's a couple pieces to that. If you were to see a large gap between two people, there will be communication challenges for sure, both on the team, but also, in the product development onto the client and the communications about that product. If you're looking specifically at a consumer product, one example might be laundry detergent and marketing laundry detergent to the consumer. If you pay attention on some taglines on the laundry detergent, it'll say new and improved. Well, who is that attracting to? The innovative idea of new and improved. To the more adaptive, they might say, well, I'm not sure if I want to try that. I like what I have been using. This sounds a little bit too much for me. And to someone that might say improved, well, that doesn't sound too exciting. I might want something different to try.
So when you're working in a team and there's a mismatch, how do you manage a team that you keep whole?
That's a great question. So Dr. Kirton put together this great little heuristic called Problem A and Problem B. And most simply defined, Problem A is a task at hand. It's what the group or the team or committee has been put together to do. And Problem B is addressing how best to solve the management of the diversity of the team. So our diversity tends to sometimes get in the way of solving problem A. If the rewards of solving problem A are greater than the stresses of problem B, we tend to be successful in solving problem A. We tend to do a fair job of doing it. If the stresses of problem B's, meaning the management of our diversity in the team, if the stresses of that is greater than the motive and the reward of solving problem A, we tend not to be as successful in solving problem A, or we may fall apart as a team because people are asking, well, I'm contributing this much. What is my reward? How am I getting rewarded? Am I getting my fair share of the reward? The goal of the leader is to make sure everyone is getting their fair share of the reward as agreed upon and keeping the team together, managing each diversity. And so we're not just talking about problem-solving style here. Our diversity of family backgrounds, how we were raised, culture, ethnicity, gender, age, status, experiences, all those things contribute to kilos of diversity that we manage when we're working with each other. And I think the value of KAI is this is one more piece that we can't see. I can't open up your skull cap, look into your brain, and know your problem-solving style. I can get some guesses based off observations, but the only real way to know your problem-solving style is to complete the KAI and get your feedback. And so to make sure we are not losing people that are valued and important to the team, we need to consider problem A and problem B and manage our cognitive gaps with each other.
Would it be fair to say that innovation is seen as extremely disruptive. You can be innovative, but it doesn't mean you have to wear pink hair when you've been gray hair. It doesn't have to be such a, or going from sauna to ice water or ice water to sauna. It doesn't have to be that drastic a change. Is that a myth then that people see that innovation does it have to be a rapid change, or is it something that's a gradual thing?
The word innovation is used so often, it gets overused and we start losing the meaning of it. I think that's also a value of KAI because we apply the word innovation specifically to style, which is disruptive, and contrast it with adaptation, which is tweaking. We're making this connection between problem solving and change. I have a problem solving style, you have a problem solving style. If I'm coming up with a solution, I'm moving from a current status of things to a desired status of things. And that's a change. When we think of change, there's lots of things we can do to dissect change. We can think about the speed of change, fast or slow. We can think about the size of the change, small or large. We can think about how simple or sophisticated the change is on a continuum. We can also look at the style of change, more evolutionary, more revolutionary. And those four things are independent of each other. We can have fast tweaking that is of a large scale and so on, or we can have revolutionary change that is slow at something that's very simple. And so some people, I think, get that we can dissect change in this way, but we don't often think that we each have a preferred problem-solving style, our preferences for innovation in that style of change.
So in designing systems, do you find that entrepreneurs or solopreneurs and managers think differently? What are the blind spots between those two groups from what you've seen?
With regard to entrepreneurs, we don't really see a connection with KAI. We have very adaptive entrepreneurs. We have very innovative entrepreneurs. It seems that being an entrepreneur is not so much related to one's problem-solving style, but how you are entrepreneurial does. For example, an adaptive entrepreneur might be very concerned with processes, logistics, team-based decisions, a very structured, organized way of doing things and how they are being creative in their business. A more innovative entrepreneur might think of this incredibly different thing that no one has ever really thought of before that could be disruptive, and they'll go out making and selling the same, but they haven't put together the team that might be needed to keep the organization going. They might go too fast and implode. A blind spot could be that they get stagnant real quick, or they get so honed in on the product that they're selling that they're not ready or willing to change the product or direction of the company because the market has moved. And so both the more adaptive and more innovative will have blind spots. And so perhaps the best thing to do is hire someone that doesn't think like you. So if you're innovative, hire an adapter. If you're adaptive, hire an innovator that you can trust, work with, get along well, and value their insight.
Chris, from what you're seeing in the big picture, the 10,000-foot view, are there industries that have gotten stale or that you think need more leadership than others?
We don't really see one particular industry going in more than others. Heavy users of the KAI are often military, both in officer training and leadership training, team training. Consultants, we do see more used in engineering fields because they're attracted to this idea of structure and how more adaptive and more innovative use and apply structure. They're quick to grasp it. We do see it in business and management training and that sort. And we do see a lot of academics using KAI because it's a reliable, valid inventory that's robust, measuring a variable well, that variable being problem-solving style. And And because we're all problem solvers, it's easy to integrate into one's research agenda or program of research.
My daughter, I believe, is millennial. And we were talking about personality testing. And this person said, oh, that personality test is now passe. It's almost been discredited. I won't mention which one it was. But are you finding that these things are tend to run their course? They've either been misused or overused or debunked. You've obviously found something that works for you. Are you finding any that are being left behind?
There's a lot of inventories out there, and some of them have been passed by because they don't have the rigor to survive the test of time. Some tend to be more faddish. I think how KA is different in that is a lot of inventories out there as a personality assessment are connected to a personality theory. And at the very core of a personality theory is if I understand myself better, I become a better person, a better leader, better friend, a better spouse, so on and so on. That's great. We need to be more self-aware of ourselves and understand others and how they are different so we can better work with other individuals. KAI is different because it's connected to a problem-solving theory, that being adaptation-innovation theory. We were just talking about change and problem-solving, product development. We're looking at gaps between people, and this being a dimension of one's personality, it changes a little bit in problem solving because I now know with adaptation innovation theory and knowing your KAI results and my KAI results, I can predict how we work together. So if I know you're more adaptive and more innovative, I can modify my behavior to better work with you or solve the problem. One thing we haven't talked about yet is this idea that Curtin calls coping behavior. Coping behavior is this notion that I can choose to operate outside of my preferred problem-solving style as needed to work with a particular person or solve a particular problem. Let's say I'm more adaptive as my preference. I can choose to be more innovative because that's what the problem requires, or that's what the person I'm working with is. Or I can choose to be more adaptive than my preference because the problem requires more adaptation, or that's who I'm working with. It's taxing to the brain to do that. It's stressful. I can only cope for so long. It's fueled by motivation. And so once I run out of motive, I'm not able to cope anymore. I turn it off like a light switch. That often explains why we procrastinate sometimes, because there's a mismatch between my style and what the problem requires me to do in a way to behave to solve the problem the best. And I know that I can't tackle that right now. I don't have enough motivation. I might need to take a nap or do it in the morning when I have more energy.
Is KAI occasionally used as a hiring test where you sit them down before they're even hired? You go, you're not going to fit here. Or is it more oblique than that?
That is a good question. We do not promote the idea or recommend in any way the use of the KAI for hiring purposes. The biggest reason is we don't want anyone telling you on the KAI that there's someone that they're not, meaning they're trying to perhaps impress you and they're not answering the questions in a reliable way. The way around that is with knowing more about adaptation innovation theory and the KAI, you can write a job description to attract the style that you want. I have a great example. I teach our senior seminar in our department. About a year ago, we had a more innovative woman, and she was excited about this job on an Alaskan fishing boat. This was up her alley. This was the job she wanted. This seemed fun and something to do before taking different jobs. This is just something to pass the time. And she had her first interview. From the interview, she learned that they just wanted her in the cabin of this big boat to collect data, manage the data, organize the data. She was like, this is the most boring thing I could ever imagine doing when I'm out on the shores of Alaska on a fishing boat. There was no mention of those duties in the position description. They were wasting their time and her time in the sense have written that job description to better align with the type of style they were looking for, which was someone who's looking for that adventure of being on a fishing boat, but finding joy in the details of managing that data. They would have had a better fit.
The size matter. So if the organization is 100 people or it's 10,000 people, is it just the cluster, like departmental level? I think the university, right? You'll have your facilities group, course planning, or even research. You have different elements in the agricultural space. You have other segments.
In different professions and different organizations, you'll find a wide range of people, with the average getting closer to, a normal distribution, depending on the group of people and the size of the organization and what's attracted them to that organization. Which you start to find pockets of people aligned with a specific problem they enjoy solving. That's why they're still there. And there you might find a group of 5 or 7 who are more adaptive or more innovative on average.
How does someone get KAI accredited? What's the process?
That's a good question. Here at Virginia Tech, at the Center for Cooperative Problem Solving, we have a MOU with the KAI Foundation. The KAI Foundation is run by Dr. Kirton's daughter, Nicola. We work closely with her, and we offer the KAI accreditation courses in partnership with Nicola. It's an education because we're talking about problem solving, change, creativity, and how to use the KAI. We have courses here offered at Virginia Tech in partnership with the KAI Foundation.
If you get the certification, do you have to be recertified every couple of years, or is it one done? How does that work?
Great question. We have a continuing education process. We realize that adaptation-innovation theory is an elegant theory. It's deceivingly simple and yet has nuances, and there are no absolutes. We can't just say innovators do this and adapters do that. It's there's so many other variables to consider, like motive and learned skills and the context of the problem and so on and so on. So we have a continuing ed process where we have webinars for people to attend to over the course of 4 years. We have an annual KAI symposium where people from around the world using KAI come to share what they're doing, both consulting and in research, what's happening, and even in teaching using KAI in courses. Over the course of 4 years, you earn points. Those points add up to continuing ed. And after 4 years, we would say that we've taught you as much as we can, although we hope you keep joining us. We have an amazing community of KAI practitioners that I still learn from every symposium on what's happening, what they're doing. It's a great experience. Incidentally, 2026 marks 50 years of KAI. Dr. Curtin came out in 1976 with KAI. We're excited about that celebration coming.
So obviously you look at companies, they're running into a problem. They're going, what? I have to find a solution to this problem. They have the problem. They found it already. They recognize it, which is the first step. The second part is, how do I provide that solution? So usually that's the company knocking your door, or are you looking for people training up, like going for the MBAs or college or university courses, and they're going to tend to lean into management at some point in time? Is that who normally kind of follow the stream to coming to your doorstep?
Yeah, we have, of course, graduate students who are using KAI in their research. We have business consultants who are often using KAI because they've partnered with another consultant who were using KAI and found it enlightening and useful, and they wanted to join us in this work. You tend to see people who work in research and development or engineering as they are looking at product development. They're thinking about, do I tweak on this product, or do we radically shift the product or service? And so we do see businesses use it regularly. Could be external consultants or even internal consultants. So it's a wide group of people. I would say a common denominator tends to be, if not consulting, they're doing leadership education in some way in bringing teams together. If you are in a business or workforce development situation where your teams are not getting the results you need or want, KAI can offer solutions. We can look at the conflict and say, where are the cognitive gaps? Where is the misalignment? Sometimes we've seen teams who are doing incredibly well and want to take it to the next level. They want to expand how well they're doing level.
What did it cost either a person or an organization to get a KAI certification? Are there various levels of certification?
There is only one type of course for accreditation. We offer accreditation in a number of different ways, both online and face-to-face hybrid, meaning the first part is online and then we come here on campus or on site to do a face-to-face piece of that. Normally, the tuition rate for the course is $3,450. And if you are coming with another individual from your organization, because we do support people coming together and building a team at your company, the price is reduced to $2,995.
How big is your territory that you work in? Do you work mostly in your geography? Do you work anywhere in North America? Where do you service?
The KAI is probably most heavily used in the United States. We have a huge United Kingdom following, also Europe, France, Germany, Netherlands, Canada for sure. But I would say it's worldwide. I've done presentations in India, Australia. I don't think I've been in South America yet. But all to say, with COVID, what happened was technology moved so fast to be able to do these presentations. It was very easy to do presentations in other country. They zoom me in and because KAI is online, I'm able to quickly share their feedback reports via email, each individual getting their own feedback report indicating their preferred problem solving style, and do teamwork workshops. So it is pretty easy to do a workshop online, although I would say that's starting to change. We're starting to see less desire for that, more desire for face-to-face workshops.
And if this resonates with you, how do I get a hold of you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I believe the link is available. You can email me directly. Email our center, ccps@bt.edu, or find us online. We're online in several different places, mostly LinkedIn.
I want to say thank you to Curt Friedel, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. You know, if what you heard here is kind of going, hey, I might need this. I need to understand my team, how to reduce conflict and apply the KAI method, reach out to Curt. It's, you have harmony inside. If you have harmony inside, you'll have better workflow.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner. And Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.